Hi there, landlords. It's Nicole, your landlord advocate. So today I'm really excited because I'm coming off back-to-back hearings. I had a really big hearing on Tuesday, and then we got a win today. And this hearing by far was very, very challenging because the landlord had lost so many cases before having me support her. So I'm really, really happy with the strategy that we put together in order for her to win. So I'm going to tell you a few things around kind of like what helps you leverage into a win. And also a lot of landlords are concerned when arbitrators get very aggressive and or abrasive with them and they feel like the arbitrator is being unfair and or the arbitrator allows for them to feel really intimidated. And you really have to know how to show up in a hearing, especially if you are representing yourself, to ensure that you have fair representation. So this hearing that I attended on Tuesday was pretty big. We had put together some really powerful pieces of evidence. Prior to that, again, the landlord had lost all of her cases, and she was just kind of like at the end of her rope. And she wanted to know, what do I need to do better in order for me to actually position myself to win? And I think if you're faced with this, if you're faced with multiple hearings, the number one question that you have to ask yourself is, what do I need to do better in order to position myself to win? So she did a really smart thing and she decided she was going to do something different. And she had me to support her on her case. And of course, I was representing her and I was presenting the case for her. So, really, what ultimately made us win was the level of strategy and professionalism that we put into this case. It's really important that as you're going into cases, you're having a level of professionalism in terms of how you are approaching the whole process that is quite high. So this landlord and I worked like almost every other day for the last number of weeks to ensure that everything that we were preparing was really focused into this one powerful strategy that was going to allow for her to come out of this with either I've done everything I could in order for me to actually, position myself. And if I didn't win, of course, I'm going to appeal it. And or I'm just going to just leverage everything possible to get a win. So we won because we had proper documentation. We had the proper professionals as well that came in as witnesses, and we stacked them and or staggered these witnesses purposefully in a specific way. So a lot of times, a lot of landlords don't really know about that as a secret. And so we had a specific witness that would show up at this timeline or this time at this point in time. And then we had another one that would show up at this point in time and so on. And it was deliberate in terms of how we were stacking these witnesses. And you, as a landlord, you can bring witnesses into your hearing. If you're bringing someone who is like a backyard alley type of personality, it's not going to really convince the arbitrator. So a lot of things around how you go about preparing, especially your witnesses, is really key. And a lot of times, what I do for the landlords is I do witness preparation. So again, I went to a hearing today, attended a hearing today representing the landlord. And one of the key witnesses, especially when a witness is your key witness, you really have to do hearing prep with that witness. So it was really great because the hearing happened again yesterday. Today we got a win. And as I read through 9 pages of the decision, I can see why we won. I just went through step by step by step, line by line by line. And we won because there's some key things that we had created as relates to the proper processes to allow for the arbitrator to interpret the pieces of evidence as well as the witnesses and the statements that we provided. So one key thing that I want to share with you before I talk about another tip is if you're in a hearing, one of the key things that you have to do is that you have to really advocate for your rights. Up front, you have to say something like, arbitrator, we are requesting, fair amount of time for us to be able to lay out and or present this case. You don't want the arbitrator listening to this tenant for like 40 minutes. And then, of course, most hearings are an hour, and then you only have 10 minutes to present your case. You want to set the expectation up front as it relates to how you want the arbitrator to relate to you as a landlord. The other thing is that a lot of times the landlords are saying that the arbitrator seems to be very aggressive and or abrasive. And of course, I've experienced it as well. You cannot lose your cool because an arbitrator is saying something and or appear aggressive and or appear like they're asking you 100 questions and you've already answered the question and you're kind of wondering, okay, why aren't you getting it type thing. You have to remain calm. You have to remain respectful. You have to actually hold your center. And you know what? When you are so prepared and when you have given yourself in a sufficient time to prepare a really, really good case, you can't really, or it's very hard for anything to kind of move you out of your center. And so that's my job as a landlord advocate for the landlords is that I come very well prepared and I don't get triggered. I don't, get reactive. I stay in my center and I stay really emotionally disconnected from whatever the arbitrator is doing. I stay extremely respectful to the arbitrator and really really focus on advocating for the landlord's rights in the process. So the reason why it's important for you to understand all these key things is because it's a legal hearing, and in a legal hearing, if you were treated unfairly, you can actually appeal that. Um, if you think that something was not done according to the proper procedure, you can appeal that. You could appeal it first to the RTB, and if you don't, if you're not successful at that level, you can go to the judicial system in terms of judicial review process. And you have to allow for all the pieces of evidence that you are putting together to match that mindset. So one of the key things that I find that is very, very difficult and challenging for a lot of landlords is that they approach their tenancy and or they approach a hearing with a very low mindset. They don't really approach it with a very high level of respect, even for their investment, and a very high level of professionalism. And so, my job is to keep educating landlords, empower you as a landlord to keep advocating for you, and to really show you how to really show up. So, this landlord that won her hearing, she's like, oh my God, like, as we were talking, she is now realizing the level. Like I've stepped up, with kind of like her whole vibe was like, now I've really stepped up. Like I'm realizing what it really takes, right, to actually prepare myself to win, especially if you have lost over and over and over again. And you've had multiple different battles with the RTB. I think this landlord had about 5 or 6 different disputes and or battles with the RTB, and she lost every one of them until again she started to work together. So she now understands what it takes in terms of how she needs to really show up, how she really needs to prepare, how she needs to strategize with, pieces of evidence and things like that. And I think for a lot of landlords, shifting them into this kind of mindset, and getting them on board with this kind of mindset, getting them to really think at a very high level when it comes to how they relate to their cases and or they relate to even if they were to initiate a dispute, is an important job for me to do. And I really just so appreciate so many landlords who are constantly allowing for themselves to be supported through having a landlord advocate like myself. And again, usually it's either 2 back-to-back hearings a week and or maybe even 2 to 3 hearings a month, and just being inside of these hearings over and over and over and over again and meeting these arbitrators, seeing what they're like, seeing the personality, seeing how they do things, experiencing this whole process. So I would love to invite you, if you would like to have support, if you'd like for me to look at some paperwork for you, feel free to reach out. I really think that landlords need so much more support. We don't get enough of that. And as a landlord myself, My big thing is about advocating for you, supporting you, and being able to really help you understand the act better, help you to be way more educated, help you to have a more of a level playing field. And lastly, I think that a lot of landlords just need to leave the victim mind behind, stop blaming or putting all the blame on the arbitrators and the RTB, and really take full responsibility for themselves as landlords and their tenancies. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time, talk again real soon. Bye, everyone.